Thanks for tuning in and welcome to the Post Route Show. And now, here's your host, W. Earl Kitchings.
Good evening and welcome to the Post Route, the show where we dive deep into conversations with Black quarterbacks, both past and present. I'm your host, W. Earl Kitchings, and this show is proudly brought to you by Quarter Five Back, the preeminent fraternity for Black quarterbacks and home of the prestigious BIP Memorial Trophy, the only national award that honors both the top HBCU quarterback and the top Black quarterback from high schools across America. We're always thrilled to be with you each and every Monday evening. So if you enjoy our content and want to support what we're doing, very simple. Please hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, or tap the notification bell so you never miss an episode. You can join us live every Monday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for more phenomenal conversations. Before we get into our show tonight, I wanted to make sure that we took care of our monthly posthumous recognition of a former quarterback who has departed this life. And we would like to welcome him into the fraternity and the brotherhood of Black quarterbacks. Our posthumous honoree tonight is none other than a guy they call the Lord's Prayer. The great Eldridge Dickey, former quarterback at Tennessee State between 1964 and 1967, went on to have a phenomenal career, a three-time Black College All-American, winner of 2 Black College National Championships, took his team to the Grantland Rice Bowl Classic, where they played against white colleges at the time. So this was back in the mid-'60s. And, you know, there are a lot of games, a lot of teams, not a lot, I won't say a lot. There are a few teams that play white colleges way early in the 60s. One of those happened to be Maryland Eastern Shore, and another happened to be Delaware State. Going back to those days. But Eldridge Dickey, he came to Tennessee State in Nashville from Booker T. Washington High School in Houston, Texas. When he got to Tennessee State, he was already a star, leading his high school in phenomenal ways. Eldridge Dickey was an ambidextrous quarterback. Ambidextrous, you say? Yes, he could throw it with his left or his right hand. And story goes by some of his teammates, he could throw it 60 yards. Either way, it did not matter. But getting the nickname the Lord's Prayer, that was given to him by his head coach at the time, Coach John Merritt, because he thought that Dickey was going to be the saving prayer to their program. And John Merritt had just gotten to Tennessee State a year before Dickey had gotten there. Merritt was at Jackson State before he moved on to Tennessee State. So you're looking at building a program, and of course you want to build it around your quarterback. So he got this phenomenal talent out of Houston, Texas. Guy was about 6'2", 190 pounds, and he lit things up. As a matter of fact, I would have to say that Eldridge Dickey was the foundation to the quarterback success that Tennessee State had after him and since him, because a lot of quarterbacks came behind him, and Tennessee State was one of the few HBCUs that loved to throw the football. And Eldridge Dickey, Joe Gillum, Ken Pettiford, Joe 747 Adams, Brian Ransom, and the list goes on, were all guys that did a lot to thrill the big blue fan base up there in Nashville by spinning those footballs many, many times. So we would like to welcome our newest member and our posthumous member to the fraternity of black quarterbacks here at Quarter Five Back, and welcome in the great Eldridge Dickey. One final note about Eldridge Dickey. When he came out of Tennessee State, he was the first black quarterback ever drafted in the first round by a professional football team. He was drafted by at that time, they were known as the Oakland Raiders. He was drafted as a quarterback, but they also drafted Ken Stabler from Alabama. So you've got these two phenomenal guys who are rookies coming into your camp to play this position of quarterback to back up the starter, who was Darryl LaMonica, who was backed up by George Blanda. Blanda was also a place kicker for the Raiders. So you got two young guys coming in, and they're looking to battle it out. And they told Eldridge Dickey they would give him an opportunity to play the quarterback position. And they did. They did give him an opportunity, but that opportunity only lasted through preseason. Once preseason was over, the switcheroo came, and he was converted to wide receiver. And after that 68th season, Eldridge Dickey did not catch another pass based on what's written until 1971. He was on the bench. They had two outstanding receivers, Fred Biletnikoff and Warren Wells at the time. So not only did he not get a chance to be a receiver, he definitely did not get a chance to be the quarterback. And it is said that because of that, it caused him to spiral and to be basically brokenhearted from the lack of opportunity. Although his coach, John Murray, tried to lift his spirits and keep him in a positive mindset, some guys just have their heart set on some things, believe they're the talent, and when things don't work out, it takes its toll. But all in all, here at Quarter Five Back in the Post Route, we will honor our newest member, our new brother, Eldridge Dickey, posthumously into the fraternity, and thank him for what he did, not only at Tennessee State, but being the first black quarterback drafted in the first round in the NFL. Eldridge Dickey, a great one. So we would like to apologize. We were supposed to have B.J. Hall on tonight, former quarterback at Weber International University, but for whatever reason, we've got some scheduling difficulties that happen right at the last minute, so he won't be with us tonight. But in lieu of that, we're going to continue to do the post route as we normally will do. So our show tonight has to do with that mega settlement. That's the only way I can describe it. A mega settlement that Judge Claudia Wilkin approved between the NCAA and Division I athletes and the conferences, or the House of Representatives. That's the way it's officially titled, the House versus NCAA. But for those of you who may not know, the judge awarded the NCAA and the student athletes, saying that the NCAA will now have to set aside funds so they can now pay athletes to play in college. $2.8 billion is going to be divvied up amongst former athletes, and $20.5 million are going to have to be paid to athletes in the Power Four conferences. This is the way the settlement came out. The 20.5, and then there's a cap that will be put on the programs of $25 million as to how much they can actually pay. But when you think about what this now means for college athletics, it now makes college athletics an even more intrinsic business, and now the student athletes are getting their just due. It had been long talked about that student athletes should get some of the monies that these programs were bringing in due to their skills and abilities on the court, on the field, on the track, wherever it was. And of course, we all know that the golden goose for sports in America, high school, college, kind of unique balance between the pros, but high school and college, the golden goose is called football. And like it or not, most of the athletes who will be getting some of these payments will be on the football side of things. Now, you got to understand that the Power Four conferences are the conferences where most of the money, most of the revenue is generated as it relates to both football and basketball. That's just the way it is, and it's been that way for a very long time. We'll talk about how it will affect the FCS schools and Division II schools, but right now, the judge has decreed that the NCAA will pay nearly $2.8 billion in back damages over the next 10 years to athletes who competed in college at any time from 2016 through the present day. What that does is schools can pay its athletes up to a certain limit, and the annual cap is expected to be roughly $20.5 million per school starting in this season. Now, it does not diminish the NIL deals. If student athletes can still get some NIL deals on their own, that'll be fine. But here's the caveat to that. There is now going to be an organization that will oversee how those NIL deals are formulated and, just what will happen to them. But let me give you some more information on how some of this will work as we talk about it. Say, well, will it harm and who will it benefit? So, again, college football, men's basketball, this is great news for them. They're going to benefit a lot. And they're looking at major programs spending up to 90% of the revenue that they'll be bringing in with those two sports. Now, you understand that football at that level has about 100 athletes. Basketball, of course, maybe about 15 to 18. But that's where the revenue goes. That's because when you look at the TV money that comes in, when you look at the bowl money that comes in, when you look at the ticket revenue that's being spent, that's where a lot of that is coming from. That's where a lot of the NIL deals are coming from. So they will benefit the most. They're the golden goose, and that's who you take care of. Because think about it. For many, many years, the football programs at many, or I would say at almost all colleges, even with high schools, football generates the most revenue, and it helps to offset the cost for those Olympic and non-revenue sports. That's just it. They generate it, and they have to spend some of that with on those programs. Now, who will this new deal not be so favorable for? They say women's sports, Olympic sports, mid-major Group 5 schools will not be taking advantage of this because, again, there's just not a lot of capital being spent on some of the other sports. For G5 schools, the lower level of the Division One, not the FCS, but of the FBS, athletic directors and administrators in these programs are looking at $1 to $3 million that they'll be getting, that they would have to, basically spend on their athletes. Smaller schools are looking to try to generate more funds from NIL funding to take up some of the slack that, of the expenses they will have. But with this organization called the College Sports Commission, they will now be overseeing a lot of what's going to be happening from the NIL. Now, one of the things they talked about too was, should college athletes be considered employees? That is a great question to think about. But here's the downside to that. If they're considered employees, they're going to need players' unions. And that will probably be something very difficult to, establish in colleges. So calling them employees is not what the NCAA, probably not what the athletic departments at a lot of these schools are looking at doing, because it would create another situation that probably would have dramatic effect. I mean, when you talk about having a union, you got to talk about collective bargaining. A players union, that's what they do. When you talk about the pros, they got players unions. So that's not what you're wanting to do. So they don't want to talk about that so much. So let me give you somewhat of a breakdown money-wise, because, of course, it's all about the money. And when you think about how this money is being spent, divvied up, I would like to just cite you an example. And this was the one that I ran across that everyone maybe can relate to a little bit better than everybody else. But let's talk about how this relates to Alabama. And we all know that Alabama, even though they've got some great programs, basketball, men and women, baseball, softball, gymnastics, but football makes the most. And at Alabama, football was seeing about 26 million. Basketball was seeing right at 6 million in a profiting situation, according to public records, of course. Whereas other sports lost somewhere around 4.2 or a little bit under that on an annual basis. So when you talk about the expenses and things of that, when you've got expenses that far exceed your revenue, then you have to, make some adjustments. And that's what a lot of schools will now have to do. Even though they're getting this $20.5 million expenditure to help with their budgets, you still got to find ways, and they're looking at ways for trimming staff, reallocating funds, how to just navigate this new landscape of college athletics. Again, 75% of the money that comes in from this settlement and going forward is for football and basketball. I'm sorry, for football, 15% to basketball, 5% to women's basketball, 5% to the other sports. It is what it is. I mean, the big dog gets the big bone. So that's how that goes. But as we look at how it affects those schools at the FCS level, Houston Christian University has filed a motion to intervene in this lawsuit last week, arguing that their fiscal interests were not adequately represented by the proposed terms of the House settlement that was agreed upon. Now, if this motion is granted, it could signify that objections from smaller universities that felt that they didn't have a voice in this suit, it could have an effect on reshaping college sports. Houston Christian just felt that they were just not given a fair shake. They're in this too, and they feel like, as we talk about sharing revenue and back pay damages and things of that nature, they just didn't feel like they were seated at the table. So while most of the $2.8 billion is going to be distributed amongst former athletes, the schools are now going to be seeing some significant revenues. Also, you got to think about the fact that if with this happening, there might be some capping of salaries as they do in professional sports. This will definitely create some new rules limiting the influence of boosters and other collective organizations. But all of this stuff starts this year. And the College Sports Commission, which will now be headed up by former Major League Baseball executive Brian Seeley, this is going to now be their job for enforcement of the new rules around revenue sharing, student athlete, third-party name, image, and likeness deals, and roster limits. That's what they're going to be overseeing. So everybody's got it cut out for them. The CSC, as it will be called, already got their website up and running. So we'll just have to wait and see how all of this is going to work out. There's some key settlement dates that'll be coming up this week and weeks to come. On June 11th, the NIL Go, and that's what they're going to be calling the NIL part of the commission. That's what they're going to call it, the NIL part, NIL Go. That portal will launch on June 11th. On June the 15th, there will be an opt-in deadline for non-defendant schools to fully comply to revenue sharing. On July the 1st, the first date for direct institutional revenue sharing payments to student athletes. So July 1st, the money gets distributed. On July 6th, opt-in schools must designate student athletes permitted by the settlement to remain above roster limits. The start of the 25-26 academic year, with the exception of designated student athletes, fall sports must be at or below roster limits by the first day of competition. Must be at or below. So if the major schools have 86 roster spots, that's what they must be at. FCS has 63 spots. That's what they must be at. On December the 1st, with the exception of designated student athletes, winter and spring sports must be at or below roster limits by the first day of competition on December 1st, whichever comes earlier. So those are some of the key dates coming up. You got a CSC. And oh, by the way, guess who else was attempting to get in on this deal? That's right. From Washington, D.C., they had created a commission on sports. And this was the Presidential Commission on Sports. And they are still working to move that forward, headed up by Nick Saban, former Alabama coach, and Texas Tech board member and booster Cody Campbell, to see if they can be aligned on key issues as it relates to college sports. They are still working out the details, but they will address ongoing legal, financial, and competitive issues of college sports. that have struggled to navigate, what times we're in now, especially the NIL portion. And Nick Saban is feeling that this should be pushed forward and everybody get together and, try to figure out a way to make it work out. I don't know if it's going to work out. I don't know why the president needs to weigh in on something like this if there was already a commission already going forward. Although it's not official and they're still in the planning stages, the current president is wanting to be very engaged with the commission and views on improving college sports, as he calls it. And as you can tell, I'm not really in favor of him being into this, an issue of national importance. So we'll just have to wait and see. But the CSC will be the enforcement arm of what will be going forth with this money being divvied up after this lawsuit has been made. And again, as it relates to the FCS and the Division II programs, they probably will not be as engaging as you see the bigger schools, and they probably won't need as much oversight, although they still will be under the banner of the NCAA. They just probably won't see as much oversight as you will see with the Power 4 schools and a majority of the Division I colleges. So that's what's on the table for right now. That's what's going to be going forward. They're projecting nearly 200,000 athletes and 350 schools of Division I, and a total of 500,000 and 1,100 schools across the entire NCAA have opportunities for NIL. So it's going to be interesting, and we just thought that bringing you our thoughts about this as we read through some of the information to share it with you and how it's going to go forth, how we're looking at a new landscape in college athletics. We thought the NIL was going to kind of be the next thing that was going to really change the way NCAA athletics looked. Now, being that athletes can now be directly paid from their schools as opposed to having all these NIL deals, I think this may be the best way to go forth with the fact that pay is going to be a part of college athletics going forward. And unless something dramatically happens, as one of my favorite groups, Earth, Wind, and Fire, would say, that's the way of the world. So that's where we are. So we would like to just let you know that this is on the table, July 1st. Everything is in play. So if you need to read up on it, there are many articles out there on it, ESPN, the NCAA, Athlon, several New York Times, Washington Post. So their websites are carrying these stories if you need to just read a little bit more about it. But July 1, the decision has been made to pay former athletes between 2016 and now, and that schools in the major colleges and conferences will be getting their monies. So there you have it. Before I close out, I would like to remind you all, as always, if you are interested in getting some of our merchandise, you can always check in with us. All you have to do is email us at quarterfiveback@yahoo.com and give us the details of your custom logo t-shirt. You can submit your payments via Cash App at $Q5 Q5 back, 44. That's the Cash App, $ Q5 back 44, or 904-994-2189 for Zelle, if you want to get your payment in. Also, if you like to get that golf shirt, you can get that. That's $55. The t-shirt was $40. If you just want to get something to represent and wear around, invest in our $25 logo shirt. It's made out of 100% cotton. Our other two shirts are made out of polyester, breathable polyester blend. Also, you can get your warm-up if you like. These are very nice polyester nylon warm-ups that you can get. And we look forward to you making a purchase. If you would like to get a copy of my book, you can get a copy of the book at the same website, The Forgotten QBs. $35 handles that. Go to our website at quarterfiveback.com. Click on the book icon, and you can get the details about what the book is all about. And don't forget, every Sunday at 1 p.m., catch our other podcast, our audio podcast called The Forgotten Quarterbacks, where we give you historical information like what we did today about our posthumous inductee, Eldridge Dickey. You can find out more information about Black quarterbacks. Let me tell you, if you go to that podcast and just listen to some of the names that we're going to be giving you, you're going to be fascinated and you're going to be very astounded. So every Sunday, 1 o'clock, the Forgotten Quarterbacks podcast. And as always, join us every Monday live here on YouTube for our show, The Post Route. And we're always happy to have you. Well, that's going to about do it for me today on this abbreviated edition of The Post Route. We look forward to seeing you next Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for our live show of The Post Route. I'd like to thank our crew, as always. And until next Monday, as we always say, go deep and go for the bomb. Take care, everybody.